Hi guys, welcome to my podcast. Did I just overshare with me, Lesego Monare? So I'm so excited to be back, and I'm talking about something that I'm very, very, very passionate about. It's something that I think it's going to give birth to a passion project that is coming up. I'm still working out the nitty gritty, so I can't wait to share that passion project that might be coming up. But today I'm talking about my academic journey. So I did go on Instagram and put out a question post about what you'd like to hear from me for this podcast. And I had a few questions about my academic journey. And I'm going to go through those questions and I'm going to answer to the best of my ability. Should you have any more questions, please do comment and ask the question and I'll respond to you as well. So the first one is, take us through your educational journey. So all my qualifications, what I've studied, and how I came about to that. So starting off, I did my undergrad it's a BSc, so a Bachelor of Science in Microbiology and Biochemistry. How I ended up here. So in matric, in grade 11, I got my marks and the question came out, what are you going to study next year? So all my life I was like, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. And I think this specific idea of being a doctor came from, I used to do pageants, as you know. So at that time, the people that would win pageants were medical doctors, like that would win your Miss Universe and Miss World were medical doctors. So I said to myself, you know what? This is my way. Plus, I was good at science and all of that in school. So I was like, I want to be a medical doctor. I take out a prospectus. I try to see whether I qualify or not. I mean, I was the best at my school, not the best, but like I was in the top 10 and everything. So I'm like, for sure I qualified. Take out a prospectus, look at the prospectus, ne? It was a movie. So I did qualify, but barely, right? So I know the requirements of medicine, they're very low, which is strange because it's a very competitive program to get into. So it's like 60 for physics, 60 for this. And I'm like, oh, I do qualify for these things. So I ask around like the people that matriculated from my school, I want to do medicine. They're like, how are your marks? I tell them how my marks are. And they're like, girl, no. It's not happening. I'm like, what do you mean? I meet the requirements. They're like, no, forget about it. Forget about it. But being a hard worker and an ambitious person, I was like, no, I'm going to show them. So I was like, this is the plan to start improving my matriculant marks. I'm going to make sure my matric marks are perfect. So then I started going ham, studying every day, improving my marks, which was great. Ended up being number 1 at my school, and I applied with my matric marks. Now, unfortunately, I could tell that, okay, things might not go very well for me. So then when I spoke to some of those people again, I'm like, please advise me on how to do this. They said to me, okay, as a backup, just apply for a BSc, which is a Bachelor of Science. And then if you get good marks in your first year, you can use those marks to apply for medicine. Or otherwise, if you do complete your BSc, you can apply for a program at WITS, which allows you to bridge into medicine. So I'm like, solid, that's a good plan. I'm going to apply for medicine and a BSc. So as you can see, I didn't make it into the medical program. I was horrible. I was sad because I sacrificed a lot in my matric year. I was studying constantly to make sure that my marks improve. So I get accepted at the University of Free State. Mom, we fill up the car with everything and we drive to the University of Free State, and I get registered for a BSc. At that time it was in genetics, and oh my gosh, I forgot, but it was in genetics and some other things. But the first year, most of the time, is you do general, you do everything within the science field, and then in your second year you get to specialize. So I got there in my first year, and when I got there in my first year, I went to my classes. And as I'm at my classes, I'm starting to feel out of place, right? I'm like, oh, something's off. Like, even when people ask me, hey, what are you studying? I'm like, a BSc. They're like, really? I thought you were like a marketing girly or a communication girly or whatnot. And then at that time, I was also doing radio, the university radio station. I was volunteering there. I can't say working because we weren't getting paid, but it was fun. So I was working for the university radio. And a lot of people were shocked that I was doing a BSc and I wanted to do medicine. So they're like, oh, okay, fine. Moving into my second year, I find out that I failed chemistry. So I struggled a lot with chemistry. In high school, I was the best. Varsity, went through it. So my marks weren't so good. I couldn't get into medicine. On top of that, I failed chemistry, which doesn't allow me to move on to the next year with the majors I had initially wanted to do. So like I said, my majors I think were in genetics and biochemistry, but it was focused on human biology because I wanted to do medicine. But now I couldn't move forward, and I went for academic counseling, and they said to me, listen, it's either you forfeit, you spend the whole year doing this chemistry, or otherwise what's going to happen to you is you're going to have to change your majors to animal biology. So I'm like, okay, I can't fail. Like, Lesego does not fail. I can't tell people that I failed, there's another year added. At that time, I didn't even have funding. So I can't tell my mom that she's going to have to pay for like a whole extra year of me just doing one module. I was like, there's no way, it can't happen. So I took the academic counselor's advice and I went for animal biology, which was strange because I'm afraid of animals. All kinds of animals. I'm not a zoo person. I'm not a bug person. I'm scared of spiders, bugs. You can think about it. I was scared of everything, but yet I was going to study this one thing that I was scared of. It was a movie, my friend, like a cinema. So then it was entomology, which is the study of insects, and zoology, and then human genetics. So I go to my classes. Obviously, we get exposed to these poisonous animals, as in like we get exposed as in like they bring frogs for us to study and to name and to look at their characteristics, what makes them poisonous, what doesn't, that type of stuff. So when we do that, we got to the section of reptiles, and they were going to bring a snake on that day to show us so we can learn and we can see how the snake looks. Did I not tell my friends I'm not going to class? They're like, no, it's a practical, it counts a lot. I'm like, I'm not going there. They're like, then what are you going to do? I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I was the kid that didn't watch Anaconda. Like, I was that kid. Like, I couldn't look at a picture of a snake. I couldn't think about a snake. I couldn't. Like, it was my biggest fear. So for me to have to see it and study it and write a report on it, I was like, I'm not doing that. So on that same day, I remember I was at my friend's race and we were sitting and we were talking, and she was getting ready to go to class. She went to class, I went to the admin office, and I went to deregister those modules. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, there's no way. Like, my insides were turning. You know when you're like in such a wrong place that your entire being is fighting you, even when you're trying to walk into those spaces. It's like, there's no way you can do this. So I deregistered those modules, that specific module, and I accepted to say, no, this is going to add a year. And there's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is, but I'm not going to continue forcing myself. At that time, I was lucky enough to have acquired a bursary. And then I was a bit more relaxed because I was like, okay, financially, I should be able to survive and it won't be that bad. That December holiday, I came home. When I came home, I felt like, okay, it's good to be back in Carltonville. It's good to be with my family. And I felt out of place in the Free State because I was struggling emotionally, I was struggling with financially, and I was struggling with anxiety as well. And the financial aspect of it was that the bursary wasn't paying on time. So we would go months without getting money, and then you'd get like a lot of money at the end, which didn't make sense because what was I eating the whole time? So then when I came back home, I decided, no, I want to come back home, but obviously I have to continue studying. And I was like, the closest university is the Northwest University. It's literally 45 minutes away, 45 minutes drive away from my home. So I'm like, okay, let me come to the Northwest University. I came, it was the January after the matric results had just came out, and I remember knocking on doors, trying to find out, how do I apply for second year? So I went to the administration office. They referred me to the dean's office. I went to the dean's office. The dean's, luckily I had my papers and my marks and everything, my matric marks. So the dean saw my matric marks and said, okay, your marks are good. I'm going to send you to different departments, and they're going to see if they can give you credit for your first year that you did at the University of Free State, and then maybe we can admit you for your second year. So I went to like 4 or 5 different offices, just trying to show them what I studied, what the course entailed and everything. And then I was able to transfer to the Northwest University during my second year. So then, because I had passed that chemistry, I was able to now go into human biology again. So then I registered for microbiology and biochemistry. That is how I came to that undergraduate of a BSc. And then at that moment, I had realized that my medicine dream is not something that I think I wanted to pursue. Obviously, it was still there because it was always the plan. But at that time, because I felt so out of place within the science field, I just realized that it would be too much of a commitment, and I wasn't willing to do it. I remember I had a roommate that was doing medicine. That girl was constantly studying, and she was the type that got 6 distinctions and missed out on her 7th by 1 mark. And she was constantly studying, but she was constantly stressed, and her marks were like not great. They were average, and she was constantly stressed and constantly studying. So after seeing how she was living, I decided that I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through that. It's not something I'm willing to commit to. I still want to be able to do the things I enjoy and have fun while I'm working. And also, I think I just started realizing that I was not a fan of blood. I know it's weird. I should have known that, but I had not been exposed to blood before. So in one of the courses in the first year, there was anatomy. So I went to anatomy class, and we were exposed to like skeletons and stuff like that. And I realized, like, no, I was joking. Like, I was just joking, guys. This medicine thing. Either way, whether I was consoling myself or whether it was true, whatever it was, I just knew that, okay, this medicine thing is no longer going to happen. I need to make do with this BSc thing. At that time, I wanted to transfer into marketing. My mom was like, no, we finish what we start. It's like, okay, yes, mom, we finish what we start. I completed my BSc degree. And after completing my BSc degree, it was a like, what now moment. I remember closer to the end of the year, people are making plans to say, okay, I'm going to do my honors. Some people are going to do PGCE, which is a postgraduate diploma in education. And then I was like, okay, let me explore both, since that's what everyone is doing and I don't know what's going to happen to me. So then I went to the PGCE office. They told me I need to do 3rd year chemistry or something. And I was like, no, I already failed chemistry. I'm not failing it again, or I'm not going through that again. And then I'm like, okay, I go to the honors office, and they're like, hey, your marks are okay for honors in either microbiology or biochemistry. I was like, okay, I still love human biology, and microbiology was more focused on environmental, while biochemistry was more human. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Let me apply for an honors in biochemistry. I did my honors in 2020, in biochemistry. And that for me was strange because it was when COVID hit. So it was a hectic time where you're home, you're studying from home, all the classes are online, and you're watching videos, you're submitting assignments online. Then next thing, you're back in the lab because we fell under the priority. So when the restrictions were lessened and they said 30% could come back or 60%, we were one of those and we went. So for me, it was just me doing what needed to get done. So I would do the job, submit my assignments and move on, do the job, submit my assignments and move on. It was also a hectic time because I didn't have funding as well. So I had to rely on my friends a lot. I was staying at a friend's place at some point. At another point, I was using public transportation to get to school. Yeah, so I had in terms of finances, it was very hard in order to complete my honors, because the taxi traveling also during COVID time was very stressful. Either everything would end late and I'd arrive home very late, which means I had to take a taxi home very late, or I would have to hike very early. So it was, and when I say hike, guys, I'm talking about that one where you like, and then they pass you and you're like, and you're late for class, and you're like, yeah, I was that girl. And the worst part about those was when you would get a hike and then the person in the hike would be lecturing you about how unsafe it was and how a girl shouldn't be doing this, and you're just there like, I don't want to be doing this. Like, nobody wants to be doing this, but because we are chasing impilo, we had to, we are ping impilo. Like, I had to. There was no other option, and I had to genuinely just push through. And luckily, I was able to pass my honors. And towards the end of my honors, also the question came again to say, okay, what now? What are you going to do now? And having not seen anyone or knowing personally someone that did a BSc and what careers they ended up in, I didn't have any frame of reference as to what now or what's going to happen now. So it was a very confusing time in a sense where I'm like, okay, I did 4 years of this. There's no way a university institution can create a degree and there's nothing to do with the degree. So then I started checking labs like your Lancets, your Pathcare and things like that to try and figure out what programs do they have maybe that I qualify for. So then I gave them a call. The information wasn't clear because most of the people they wanted to work with were biotechnologists, but they were open to working with BSc students. But however, it was a you'll have to apply, we'll see if we have space type of thing. And I remember a friend of mine then was dating this guy that did a similar course. So then my friend was like, hey, he's doing his master's, maybe have a talk with him and see. So then he was open to having a talk with me. He came, sat me down, and then I asked him about his master's program. So that's when he told me about the master's in pharmaceutical sciences. And at that time, because it was mid-COVID, I learned a lot about pharmaceutical companies and vaccine production and with the role that they play within our society and how South Africa is a bit backward. But now, because of the whole COVID pandemic, they're trying to move into that space. And I was like, okay, that's a good space to go into. It's something that is growing and potentially I could find employment. And the way he sold the program to me, which was in pharmaceutical sciences, was he told me how the program basically uses or is checking the need of the society and trying to basically do research based on that. The department that I was working in focuses on preclinical drug development. So they run preclinical studies. And he was telling me there's research on plants that are used traditionally in South Africa, and there's research on medicines that are to come out. And for me, that was very interesting because I was like, okay, now I see where science meets community and it merges. And I got excited. I applied for the program. Once I applied for the program, it had an interview round. For the interview round, I was not nervous because Miss Personality here, like I can sell you shoes. I can sell you a pen. Like I'm that girl. So I was ready for the interview, did well for the interview. The second round involved writing a literature review. So we had to write, they gave us a topic and we had to write a 2-page paper basically talking about that topic. Did that, submitted that, then I got into the program, which I was shocked about because academically I was not necessarily the strongest person. So I was like, oh, okay, that's great. Personality works. Just know how to phrase, how to with your words, and then you'll be fine. So I got into the program, and when I got into the program for the first time within the science industry, I felt like, I'm home. Like, it makes sense. This is what all of that was for, right? The nice thing is they were also giving us funding. The university had bursaries. The department had bursaries. And I forgot like the most important part in my story that every time I think about this part, man, like I get so emotional. It's when I was supposed to register for my master's program. And I still had outstanding fees from my master's program. I think it was around close to 40,000. And now I can't register because I still owe money. And now I'm stressed. I remember trying to see, applying for some funding to just try to see if I can afford it. And trying to go to offices, like the financial aid offices, trying to see if they can help me. And there was a time on campus where I went to every office I could and no one could help me. And I was just sitting randomly at a random spot on the floor on campus. Okay, school wasn't open, so it wasn't that strange. There wasn't a lot of people on campus. And I sat there and I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? And an idea came up. I'm like, hey, why don't you start asking people to donate? Because there was a girl that had done it, and I think she was a medical student, and people donated, and she actually got the money for her studies. Then in that moment, I did the same. So I created a poster then and there. I posted it on my Facebook, on my WhatsApp. Everywhere I sent it to my family to also share. And yeah, that's what I did. And at that time, I think I was asking, I was asking for 100 Rand from, I think, 400 people. It was something like that because it amounted to around about 40,000. So I was like, okay, I mean, I've got 1,000 and something followers on Instagram. If like 400 of them give me 100 Rand, I'm sorted. I've got 40,000. I'm good. So then I do that, and every day I remember checking my account, and there would be these 100 Rands, and I'm like, I don't even know where they come from, but like there's these 100 Rand. Some people it's 150, some people it's 200. Some people would send to my personal account that know me. They'd be like, okay, here's 200 Rand, here's 100 Rand. Every day I'm checking. And then there was also a random donor of like 20,000. I'm like, 20,000. I gave the school a call. I'm like, hi, I see there's 20,000 in my account. Are you able to check who it is? They're like, no, we can't check who it is. Because now I'm like, I want to thank this person, whoever they are. And I have no idea. But 20,000 in, I go now to the master's department that I'm going to study in. And I'm like, this is how much I'm left over. They're like, okay, this is the funding that we're going to give you. Luckily, the funding was able to cover whatever amount was left behind, and then also my registration. And I don't know, you can tell my voice is getting shaken up everywhere because this story is unreal. Like, it's unreal. And that is why I feel like when I went into my master's program, I felt home. Because I felt like, I don't know, avuleki la mazango. Like, it felt like it's open. Like, the doors have been opened. It just felt like, wow, okay, this is where I need to be. This is where God wants me to be. Like, just there, like, it was just a moment for me. So I got into the program. I realized it was a beautiful space to be in. The people there were very kind. It was a nice environment, and considering that it's masters, it's very important because you spend every day there. So the masters program is designed in a way that it's like you also work there. So they had an internship program that felt part of being there, and then you got paid for the internship program, and you were also doing your masters. So for me, being there every day, having a great community of people, great supervisor, great lectures, and people that listen to you. Because when I got there, I was like, I'm into formulations, and I'm thinking I want to go into the beauty side of things and do formulations. And we were just randomly talking when we were having our orientation. And then from then on, I got called into my supervisor's office, and then he was like, okay, your project is going to be on formulations. However, it's not going to be cosmetic formulations. It's going to be on medicinal formulation. And I was just there like, okay. And he's like, yeah, we heard you talk about formulations, and we thought it would be a perfect space for you, and you'll do great at it. And I was like, okay, another confirmation that I am finally in the right space. So then I'm doing that. My first year goes, I'm doing well. It's challenging, obviously, but I'm doing well. My second year comes around. Halfway through the year of the second year, I realized that I'm not moving as fast as I was supposed to be moving, because one thing about the master's program, it is very, what's the word? I don't know if you have to self-discipline yourself. Yeah, you have to basically self-discipline yourself. You decide when you write, when you do this. Obviously, there's deadlines that you set with your supervisor, but if you don't abide by them, they just like, okay, then what are you going to do? So they're not very dictatorship on you. It's more of you set your goals, you set when you're going to achieve something, when you're going to submit something, and things like that. So with me, I think I got so relaxed because of that. Like, I would nurse my stress, I would nurse my anxiety, I would nurse, like, whenever I was having a tough time, I'm like, you know what, I'm taking a day off. And that's what I would do. So halfway through the year, my supervisor tells me, listen, you haven't pushed further enough, you're going to be here for a third year. I was disappointed because then I tried to like push and start working hard, but it wasn't enough time to do it. So then third year, luckily I still had funding. So then I registered for the third year. And in my third year, we started having challenges. because there were certain items when in my research that were no longer available. They were available the previous year, but this year they were no longer available. So then we had to wait, reapply for ethics, reapply for certain things, and it just took long and long and long. And instead of being there for like a few months, I ended up being there the whole year. So while I was in that waiting period of applying to acquire certain materials for my study, I said, you know what, there's a postgraduate diploma in cosmetic formulation that exists on our campus. And I was like, why don't I do that so long? Because I'll be waiting for most of the time and the program is part-time. So then I went to go and try and register for the program, and they send me to the director's office. I go to the director, and the director's like, unfortunately, at the NWU, we don't let you register for two degrees at the same time. It was a diploma, so for 2 qualifications at the same time, because we need you to prioritize the one you're working on and you finish it and then you move on the other one. So then I explained to the director that, okay, so my master's, most of it is done. It's just that now I am waiting for just certain parts to applications that need to be processed, and then I should be done. So then they send me to another office, I go to another office, and that lady also tells me the same thing. Girl, I cried. Then and there in the office, I felt like my dream of having this cosmetic company is being taken away from me. So then I cried, and Shane, this poor lady, and she's a whole professor. She just looks at me and she's like, why are you crying? And I tell her, no, I'm just so sad. My dream is being taken away from me. And she's like, okay, no, I'll talk to your supervisor. If your supervisor can confirm that most of your master's is done and you'll be able to do this course and that course, I will give you access. I'm like, okay, cool. I call my supervisor then and there. I'm like, hey, they're going to call you. So expect a call. Like I said, my supervisor was the best. So then my supervisor gets a call, writes a recommendation letter, gives it to my director, the director of the department. She also signs off, and bada bing, bada bong, I'm in the course. So then this is how I did my postgraduate diploma in cosmetic product formulation, which also, to confirm, felt like the right space for me to be in. I was so happy. I enjoyed every little bit of it. And then, yeah, that was my academic journey. I know there's a lot of going on. It's like this. And for me, because I went through so much, I just don't want other people to go through what I went through. Because had I had the information, I think my journey wouldn't have been so up and down and would have been so prepared. And that is what's going to give birth to my passion project, which doesn't have a name yet, but it is going to be focused on career development. It's going to be focused on basically career guidance as well, to just make sure that people don't go through the ups and downs that I went through. And that is what I'm hoping to give to my community and to engage with my community in terms of helping people that are gonna be moving from high school into varsity. So thank you so much for being here with me, and I hope you enjoyed my stories, and I hope I made sense, because I know I was just, it was up and down. And if you have any questions, please do comment, ask, and I'm ready to answer. Bye.